All right. So yeah, but when we talk about education, we usually mean like sitting in school, listening, reading,
Right.
writing, and that's the basis of our society for this 200 years. And okay, we can argue that it's bad, but we can also see the good things it brought up. But when we use play in education in that way, like a formal
Yeah.
education, is there some challenges to that?
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge for play-based learning in schools is that schools are not currently set up for it. In other words, schools are very much designed. I sometimes argue that, and I'm talking about the United States, I'm guessing it's not that different in Indonesia, but that school is designed to produce an acceptable average as efficiently as possible.
Conformists.
In other words, that's right. It's looking for average. It's looking for everyone to take the same tests and produce just an acceptable average score and to do it as efficiently as possible. Play is very inefficient. Play is everybody sort of pursuing their own interests at their own pace. Sometimes something can come really quickly through play. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort and repetition, which children don't mind doing when they're playing. They actually, if you watch a child trying to do something very difficult at play, like construct a tower or something with blocks, they'll take forever doing it. They'll just keep at it. So there's a lot of persistence in that kind of way, but it's not efficient. And so for school could be a perfectly wonderful place for play-based learning, but it would mean sort of getting rid of our notions that everyone has to be sitting in their desks doing the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah, everyone's different, and
Right.
through play we can explore our own thing, I guess, right? Yeah, so how about the examples of, are there some like educational institution or schools that already use a lot of these things that you talk about?
Sure, and these are not new ideas, they're over a century old. I mean, in fact, if you go back to Plato's Republic, Plato talks about that
play
we learn
all
through
the
play,
time.
right? But certainly within the context of institutionalized schooling,
like today.
we've been for about 100 years, people really try to develop schools that are more play-based. The most famous would be Maria Montessori. So Montessori schools, which are kinds of, they're usually private schools, not public schools. And there are schools, I only can speak to the US, which is the world I know, but there are schools, some public, but mostly private schools that are largely about project-based learning and exploratory learning. They don't necessarily call it play-based learning, but if you look at the kinds of...
It's kind of a play.
That's right, the kind of projects that they do, kids are being very playful throughout the day.
So it's has it shown to be like successful?
It's perfectly successful. I mean, remember that we are still measuring success by how kids do on standardized tests.
That's a problem.
So, which are suspect. But the kids from those schools do fine on standardized tests. In fact, the one study that I heard about of kids coming from these kind of entrepreneurial schools, I mean, not entrepreneurial, I mean sort of playful schools, is that in fact they end up doing the same in college, but they end up being more entrepreneurial in their lives afterward.
Right,
So that it suggests that they're really much better at self-motivating.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and being creative.
So for the average teachers who are still stuck in the old system, knowing these values, knowing this importance of play and education, how should they approach? What characteristics or what values should a teacher hold for education?
I think the good news is there are lots of good teachers out there, and I think once they understand that, once they sort of begin to value what children do through play, I find most teachers are pretty good at coming up with interesting things to do. Their biggest challenge is always fitting it in the schedule that's required, the things that are required of them by the standardized curriculum. And there's no easy answer for that, for how teachers can
approach.
Because they've got, and I sympathetic, they've got obligations to teach a certain curriculum and to cover a certain amount of material. I think the one thing they can always try to do is look for any kinds of projects that students do around any topics to try to make those as creative and as playful as possible.
Creative, playful projects, so more experiential learning and stuff like that.
And when possible, to have kids do it in collaboration, because in fact we know that generally people learn better through collaboration than through just individualized learning.
Yeah.